How's everybody doing today? This is Corey Lee's Boxing, and we are back with another banger. So please smash that like button, you guys, and subscribe if you haven't. And yeah, man, we're gonna talk this Devin Haney situation with Gary Russell Jr. Again, and right now it's looking like Devin Haney's leaning more towards Gamboa. Gary Russell said in a recent interview, a recent live stream he did, he pretty much said that Devin, he said that he didn't say he needs a 8-week camp, but he said that a real camp is 8 weeks, and I guess November 7th is less than 8 weeks away, so he's pretty much implying that maybe another date and the fight could get made. But from what I'm hearing, Devin Haney has already solidified that date, that November 7th date. So, it's pretty much no backing out of that date. That's their date. That's what DAZN gave Devin Haney, and he's got to work with what he has. You know what I mean? It's looking like, Devin Haney is gonna have to do, what he's got to do to make his money. Point blank period. Point blank period. He's got to do what he's got to do to make his money. UGC, what's happening? He's got to do what he's got to do to make his money, man. My personal opinion about the whole situation is, I truly think right now that Devin Haney, if he fought Gamboa, that's a credible name. You can't go wrong with either fighter, Gary Russell Jr. or Gamboa. Gamboa just came off of getting iced by Tank Davis, and and before that, who did he fight? Can't remember who he fought before. He fought Javante Davis. But listen, man, Gamboa is on the way out, and I don't think it's gonna be no upsets. Now, I could see a possible slight. I'll give more of a chance to Gary Russell than I give Gamboa. That's what I'm saying, and opponents that they're picking. Because let's be honest, Gary Russell Jr. is not an opponent. Gary Russell Jr. is a world champion. So there's a big difference between opponent and world champion, which a lot of guys need to understand. The difference is, if you're a world champion, you're not trying to lose that status. You don't want to lose what you've worked so hard for. And I don't blame Gary Russell Jr. for calling out all of these top fighters, man. They need to start fighting, man, to be honest with you. And, right now, I really think that, Gary Russell Jr. is going down, the path that he's got to go down to get these fights. There's no other way, man. I just don't see him being humble and quiet, like he had been. I don't think that's been working, man. When I seen him at the Jared Hurd fight, when Jared Hurd fought Julian J. Rock Williams, when he was at that fight and I interviewed Gary Russell pretty much told me, look, man, I'm looking for all the champions. If you have a belt at 135, I'm coming for you. At that time, Devin Haney was not a champion at 135 yet, okay? He wasn't the world champion at 135 yet. He might have been interim, but I doubt that even. The Julian J. Rock Williams versus Jared Hurd fight was almost 2 years ago. So it was I would say it's about a year and a half ago, probably, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, man, I just think that right now, man, I think that Gary Russell Jr. And Devin Haney would be an action-packed fight, I think, and it'll be a highly skilled fight. Both are boxers. Both can bang if need be. But I've seen Devin Haney more calculated. You know what I mean? He doesn't like to bang as much. Obviously, with age comes more power. And I think that Devin Haney hasn't reached his peak yet. I think he's still climbing. Gary Russell is definitely at his peak right now. I watched the fight with Jojo Diaz live versus Gary Russell Jr. I was at that fight, and I interviewed a bunch of people at that fight. And leading up to that fight, look, man, and Gary Russell Jr. was a smaller fighter in that fight too, visibly. Okay? That was JoJo Diaz's last fight at 126, and he barely made weight, I believe, if he did make weight. He might have missed it. I know they say he was in the sauna an hour before the weigh-ins. That should tell you something. You know, he's not on weight, you know, so, you know, Gary Russell moving up to 135. I definitely give Gary Russell a chance because of his boxing ability. But as far as pure power, I'm going to probably have to lean more towards Devin Haney being a power advantage. The IQ advantage, I would have to go with Gary Russell, being that he's fought a Lomachenko, being that he's fought a JoJo Diaz, you know, being that, you know, he's been a pro longer, being that he's 100% pure athlete. You know, Gary Russell Jr., you know, he has, at the end of the day, he has a lot to lose as well. You know, his only loss is to Lomachenko, arguably the best pound for pound fighter in the entire world of boxing. So you losing a split decision to that guy is nothing to be ashamed about. It's nothing to be, you know, nothing to feel bad about. You know what I mean? That was, if there is anything, so there's no such thing as a good loss. But when you have a split decision loss like that, and one judge had you winning the fight, one judge had Gary Russell beating Lomachenko 116 to 112. So you have to keep that in mind, man. You know, one judge seen it Gary Russell's way, okay? And for him to get that type of judge and that type of scoring, you know, that speaks volumes, you know, to what he's capable of doing. You know, if he could get one judge to say he won pretty much 8 rounds to 4 against Lomachenko, arguably the best pound for pound fighter in the world. If one judge said that, what do you think they're gonna say in the Gary Russell versus Devin Haney fight? I don't think that Devin Haney is more skilled than Lomachenko at this point in his career. He's still very young, 20 years old. Now, do I think he'll give Lomachenko all he can handle? Yeah. Just from the sheer size advantage that Devin Haney's probably bigger than all the 130. He might be one of the biggest 135 pounders, if not the biggest. But like I said, man, let me know what you guys think in the comment section. It's looking like Devin Haney's favoring Gamboa. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Please smash the hell out of that like button and subscribe. And until next time, you guys, peace.